It's that time of the year where I want to sit down and look at some of the best roller coasters that I've ridden. I just wanted to count down my top 25 roller coasters for you, which I want to do every single year. Hopefully next year this list will be even more epic. I'm also not going to go into too much detail on each ride, so if you want to know more about them, please let me know in the comments below. Ask me any questions, give me your list, do whatever you want in the comments. I'm there for you, buddy. Let's get right into the list with number 25, which is Big Loop at Heide Park in Germany. This is a classic Vekoma MK1200 looping coaster, and it is sort of a custom layout, even though it has a pretty basic standard layout as well. You know, it has the double loops, the double corkscrew, and the normal helix at the end. It has a very nice and scenic location, and I don't remember the rides from Heide Park that well, but what I do remember well from this ride is the fact that the drop was fun, and the loops are hella forceful. I'm pretty sure this is the first ever full-on gray out I got on the coaster, at least the first one I can remember, because these loops were really forceful, and I completely grayed out after just the first loop. A lot of people say that it is very rough. I don't remember it as that, but when I rode it, which was 6 years ago, I was definitely still a GP, so probably didn't bother me as much for some reason. I at least did a mini marathon on this thing, which is really fucking stupid. As far as I remember, it deserves the top 25 spot. At number 24 is Poseidon, the Mack Rides water coaster at Europa Park in Germany. It's the best water coaster I've been on easily, and it's because of two things. First of all, the layout is just really great. It has two halves, one with a bunch of nice lateral fill turns and some twists, and then it has a second half with a nice floaty drop and a somewhat floaty bunny hill. It's obviously themed to Greek mythology, and it's just so fantastic. It feels so realistic, so beautiful and scenic, and just plain awesome, and it's a great atmosphere that this entire ride has. So I would very much recommend you riding this if you go here, because it is such a great coaster, because it's a great overall experience. At number 23, we have Rutsjebane at Tivoli Gardens here in Denmark. This is the coaster I've ridden most of any coaster in the world, and it is the third oldest on Earth. I mean, it's Europe's oldest roller coaster. It's a classic L.A. Thompson scenic railway from 1914, and it is just a great overall package. I would say this coaster is probably perfect, except for the fact that it has benches for seats. You know, they're not very soft at all, and that's an issue, because if you're sitting in the right seats, you're gonna get great standing airtime. I'm specifically talking about the front, and I mean the very front, where you're gonna get some nice ejector pops, and also the very back row where you get sustained standing airtime, and it's fantastic. And then it kind of hurts when you land on that bench again, but that doesn't matter because the airtime is just incredible. You can get so much room in this coaster because of the classic lap bars things. And on top of that, you also get some great laterals. It's so insanely smooth for its age. I would not even call this rough, and it's a wooden roller coaster that's 170 years old. I mean, the maintaining on this ride is beyond amazing. And on top of all of that, the beautiful mountains. It's such a great setting. It's a beautiful atmosphere. The theming is really nice. It's one of the most well-themed coasters in the country. Definitely one of the best coasters in the country. At number 22, we have Shaman at Gardaland in Italy. This is another Vekoma MK1200. This one is a clone layout. It is the double loop corkscrew, which you might know because that is also the layout of Carolina Cyclone. That's of course an aero ride. And this is just an upgrade for Big Loop. I really don't have much to say about it other than the loops are a little more forceful. The drop is great. It has a nice scenic pre-drop. The corkscrews also have a nice setting, and the helix is really fun. Plus, it's actually very smooth, and it has the vest restraints. And that's really all I have to say about it. At number 21, we have Jetline at Gröna in Sweden. So this is one of the only two remaining Sierra Schwarzkopf rides up there. And it is just a fantastic ride, this overall. It definitely has some issues. If you saw my review, you would know that this is a ride that has a really great first half and a not too impressive second half. And the first half is really well filled with good, powerful, positive forces. It's a really forceful ride. Great sustain and whippy laterals, really just so good in the first half. And then the second half consists of some helixes and turns that just don't really deliver much. No force, no laterals. It's still fun, and it feels classic, and it feels fast. And the first half just really pulls it up. It's so great. I was a little disappointed with this ride, but man, it definitely still deserves to be in my top 25. Kicking off the top 20 though, and just barely beating Jetline, is Wildermusen. This is the Gerstlauer bobsled that wraps around Jetline, and this is one of the coasters that surprised me the most ever. It's a wild mouse, so obviously I don't expect much. I expected, oh, it's a family coaster. It's probably gonna be really fun, but not anything special. Maybe have some good laterals in those turns. Oh, it has some good laterals, alright. This is borderline a thrill coaster. I actually classified as a thrill coaster because those laterals, those switchbacks are so brutal. The long sustained turnaround switchbacks are really powerful, and the small ones here are just so brutal and completely throw you around. There are so many of these great lateral moments, and it feels so chaotic. And on top of that, it even has some fun little positive force moments, as well as a little bit of floater airtime. And I just never expected to have as much fun as a Wild Mouse as I did on this. At number 19 is Kake at Heide Park in Germany, a B&M dive coaster. I love B&M dive coasters. I think the drops are just great. Kage has one of my favorite drops of all time. It has a nice theme, this great splashdown, and then I don't really remember the rest of the ride from there on. But from what I've heard, this Immelman and this Camelback both give just the perfect floater. But unfortunately, the ride already ends after that. So it is a very short ride. It does very few things, but those things that it does are just so great. I remember the drop almost perfectly, especially because I have ridden another dive coaster since then. And that is pretty much just enough to pull it all the way up. For me, a good drop can do so much for a roller coaster. And that's why Kake deserves to be up here. And honestly, I need to rewrite the coasters in Heide Park. I really need to. At number 18 is Arthur at Europa Park in Germany. This is a Mach Rides inverted power coaster. And yeah, I have a powered coaster above a B&M dive coaster. And you might be thinking, why? Arthur is a fantastic overall experience. It is very much a dark ride mixed with a roller coaster. What it does is it combines a power coaster, an invert, and a spinning coaster, and puts that into this great storytelling with really well detailed theming, great onboard audio and music, and just posts some great scenes. It flies over cafes, which is super magical. It feels like such a great experience. It even has a little bit of whip at one point and some smooth laterals. So the coaster itself can also do some things, and that's why it's not just a dark ride, it is a coaster. But man, this is just an example of how theming can really blow you away and actually make you take the experience above other thrilling roller coasters. At number 17, we have Tivoli here at Djurs Sommerland in Denmark, an intimate family launch coaster. It's not a family coaster. I know that this is technically classified as a family coaster, and I think a lot of these intimate family launch coasters are family coaster level, but Tivoli just takes that just a step up. Tivoli has, first of all, two great launches. One is a little more slow, one has a nice kick to it, and between all of that, and especially in the section after the second launch, you get some incredible transitions, some really nice whippy laterals, which are just even more fun on top of the ATV cars. You even get some great positive forces here and there. It's a very intense family coaster. Great layout, so long, so scenic through the trees and the waterfalls, so low to the ground. It just feels so fast, and on top of that has some nice theming as well. For a family coaster, this is pretty much perfect, and that's why I would say it's barely a family coaster. At number 16, we have Flug der Dämonen at Heide Park in Germany, a B&M wing coaster. Again, I barely remember this ride, but I do remember it to just be great. I had so much fun on this, and again, I was a GP back when I rode it, so after I rode it, and actually for a few years after that, this was my favorite coaster. You get some great hang time on this ride, especially on the wing over drop, as well as the demonic knot, which is a unique inversion. I remember it being a little bit forceful as well, but honestly, I don't remember much after that. It just felt so epic, and I loved the hang time. It was my first real experience with like powerful hang time. While it's not even my favorite coaster in the park anymore, it certainly deserved to be my favorite coaster of all time back when I rode it, because again, I was a GP. It took me a few years after this to become an enthusiast. Flug der Dämonen is just a really good wing coaster. At the number 15 spot, we have Falcon at Fårup Sommerland here in Denmark. This is one of only a very few SNS wooden roller coasters in the world, and while SNS are not necessarily the best at making wooden roller coasters, I would argue that Falcon is one hell of a little airtime machine. It's not a very large coaster at all, but has a great first drop, a great camelback, and a few fun little bunny hills, as well as a few laterals here and there, and overall just a nice little package into a ride. A big thing about this coaster that a lot of people don't like is the fact that it is rough. And what especially makes it bad is the shin guards. The shin guards can really fuck up your leg, especially if you sit on the right side of the train. I kind of look past it and still, think it's very fun. Falcon is just a super fun little ride, especially especially when you get some ejector in the front, and it just manages to be a great little wooden package. At number 14 we have Desert Race, another coaster from Heide Park that I also don't remember that well, but what I do remember is the fact that this is an intense little ride. It's an intimate accelerator. It's the coaster with the almost exact same layout as Rita at Alton Towers. And the first thing that I want to mention is that launch, dude. That launch is sick. It is a hydraulic cable launch, which obviously kicks ass. You get violently thrown into these intense turns with some nice high G-forces. There's some floater hills, and I just remember the tears rolling down my face because of the high wind and the high forces. This is a great little intense ride, and I really want to give it a ride again just to see how intense it actually is. It doesn't quite make my top 10 simply because I don't remember it that well, and I don't remember it being my favorite at the park either, so therefore I feel like this is a pretty good spot to put it at, but man, I hope to ride it again soon. At number 13 is Lund at Gerslauer launch coaster at Fårup Sommerland in Denmark. Lund is basically the predecessor to the Infinity coaster, and what's so great about Lund is that it's separated into 3 great sections. You start out with the first great section with a good forceful launch as well as some fantastic airtime moments. You really get popped out of your seat here. Then you move into some really fun floaty inversions, and then you end up with some good turns with some force here and there. This is a great overall ride with a great overall package. It's rattly, but it's not necessarily bad. It really delivers everything from airtime to positive forces to fun, floaty, and somewhat whippy inversions. If you want a great small coaster that packs a punch, Lund is really the ride for you, and it's honestly one of the best coasters in Denmark. At number 12, we have Raptor in Gardaland in Italy. This is a fantastic wing coaster. It was B&M's first ever wing coaster, and I think they started off just great. What this coaster really does well is the overall setting and how it utilizes it. It has this great, really close quarters theming around it, themed to basically this monster. There are some jungle trees, some jungle theming here and there, and it's like you're escaping from a facility. You start out with a great, fantastic, really airtime-filled drop down into this trench, and then you move into some awesome hang-timey inversions that are really low to the ground and have a bunch of great head choppers and foot choppers. That is really the strength of this ride. It's all the near-miss elements because they're all so great, especially on the final inversion, which is this inline twist that provides an entire 4 near-miss elements for both your feet and your head. It's crazy, plus the hang time here is fantastic. The overall ride is just so freaking good, and honestly it just feels like a fast and intense experience overall. At number 11 we have Oblivion the Black Hole, the B&M dive coaster at Gardaland. These two coasters are incredibly close to me, but this is the one that I favored slightly when I was there 4 years ago. Oblivion the Black Hole is very much just an upgrade of Kake in Heide Park. First of all, the theming is even cooler. It's a very cool space theme. The location is absolutely insane. I got a great sunset ride, which again is right next to Lake Garda. That shit is so beautiful. The ride itself looks great and of course has that fantastic first drop on a dive coaster. Then it becomes very similar to Kake in the fact that it has a great floaty implement and a fantastic little floaty airtime hill. And then it has a little bit of extra with a nice fun, maybe not too extreme helix, and then a nice hang-timey hardline roll to finish it off with. The ride felt epic. If you want a fun, little, small dive coaster with a great layout and some solid theming, Oblivion the Black Hole is the one for you. We're gonna kick off the top 10 with something you might not expect this. This is Eurosat Can coaster, which is a custom Mach Rides indoor roller coaster at Europa Park in Germany. This is definitely a family coaster. It's of course the successor to Eurosat, and it has updated track as well as a little bit of element changes, and of course a completely new theme. And while it's mostly just family friendly and doesn't do a whole lot, it definitely does serve a little bit of laterals here, a little bit of airtime and funky ups and downs here and there. The strength of this ride is really just in the entire experience. The theming is just so beautiful in this ride, and it honestly makes you emotional when you go up the spiral lift hill up the Eiffel Tower. And then when you move into the fast part of the ride, the Can soundtrack starts playing, and man, that is where it just gets so fun. This is one of the coasters I've laughed the hardest on. Rolling in the dark on an awesome roller coaster while you're listening to the Can classical soundtrack is just epic. It's so fun. It feels a lot faster because of it. It is easily the best family coaster I've ridden. At number 9, we have Blue Fire Mega Coaster, the Mack Rides launch coaster at Europa Park in Germany. This is of course our first one, and it's a very iconic roller coaster. A lot of people know about this ride, and a lot of people also say that it's either overrated or just plain bad. I'm here to tell you that that is not right in my opinion. Blue Fire is a great thrill coaster, but it definitely also has some dead spots. To get it out of the way first, I never got a spot where I really got any airtime on any places, so that's one of the big letdowns. But what it really makes up for is, first of all, it has a great theme. It feels really comfortable with the nice Mack Rides restraints, and on top of that you have a fun launch, and you have some really nice and floaty inversions, especially the loop, whereas the corkscrews are slightly whippy, and then the hardline roll is just one of the most insane inversions I've ever experienced. It's so whippy and provides ejector airtime. Not to mention that more of the ride is also a little forceful, and when you add that with the lap bars and the overall setting, it all turns into a great thrill coaster with a little bit of everything. There's just something about Blue Fire that's so fun when you ride it. While I can certainly see this being near the bottom for the Mack Rides launch coasters, it is certainly not a forceless ride like people say. And number 8 is Monster at Gröna Lund in Stockholm, Sweden. This is the B&M inverted coaster I did a few months ago, and it is my first invert, and wow, this coaster kicks ass. It's a very unique invert in the fact that it has a very varied layout. It has both positive forces and also floatiness. It has some laterals here and there and some whip. It also has airtime, which is really great, and it's located over paths and buildings, which is just such a great setting. It's such a beautiful location. It's super smooth. When it comes to the forces itself, yep, it's super forceful. The first drop going into the 0G roll is incredibly forceful and whippy, plus all the inversions are really nice and floaty and also give a little bit of whip, roaring over the streets like this, looking down on people while experiencing this great layout is such a unique experience. It's one of the newest B&Ms on the planet, and I think it just goes to show that B&M have definitely not lost their edge, and I really hope they start making some more inverts. We do not see them anymore at all. And quite frankly, Monster is just one of the best coasters at Gröna Lund. It's not quite my favorite though, as my favorite coaster in Gröna Lund is Twister. Twister is the little gravity group wooden hybrid that they have, and there's no ride that shows that size doesn't matter just as well as this ride. I want to quickly get out of the way that you should avoid the front row. The front row sucks on Twister, but the back row is where the shit is at, because in the back row this ride becomes a great little airtime machine. It has some strong ejector airtime with some quick lateral pops as well. This coaster has the perfect wooden roller coaster rattle, and when you mix that with the gravity group trains, the Timberliners, man, that's great. There are so many fun little airtime moments here and there, a little bit of laterals as well. Twister is just a super fun little ride. It is so small. It's the smallest coaster they have that is not a kiddie coaster, and yet it's my favorite in the park and one of my absolute favorite wooden roller coasters. At number 6, we go back to Hansa Park in Germany for the Gerstlauer Eurofighter Flucht von Novgorod. If you want a fantastically themed and highly intense Gerstlauer Eurofighter with a custom layout, look no further than Flucht von Novgorod. This ride packs in the entire experience. The theming is super detailed and very epic, and it has one of the most powerful launches in the world, at least when it comes to LSM launches. And then you get into the layout filled with strong ejector airtime, fun laterals, powerful forces, and even some hang time. That's the entire first half of the ride, and spoiler alert, but you go in there and still get the classic Eurofighter experience with a fantastic and well-themed vertical lift hill going into my favorite drop on any roller coaster, a 97-degree beyond vertical drop in the darkness with lightning effects. Flucht von Novgorod has everything and barely any dead spots. At number 5, it is Silver Star, the B&M Hyper Coaster at Europa Park in Germany. This is not a super intense ride, but what this ride does is just provide a great overall sensation of speed and height and epicness because of how large it is and how sustained all the elements are. Silver Star is the only B&M Hyper I've done, and while I understand that it's probably in the lower tier of them, that just shows to me how great these rides are. You are so comfortably seated in this Formula 1 themed ride. The camelbacks in this ride all provide great long sustained floater airtime that really makes it feel like you're gonna fall out of your seat and you're just flying through the air, which is such a great sensation. It even has some positive forces here and there, and even 2 ejector airtime moments. Oh, and did I mention some whip at the end? Silverstar is a very basic B&M hypercoaster, a very basic layout, camelbacks, a turnaround, camelbacks, a little helix, and then it's done. But every single one of those hills provides some great airtime. Some are a little weaker, but very fun and sustained floater airtime. The last hill actually provides some pretty solid and stronger floater airtime. It's the tallest coaster I've done, along with another one which we will get into later, and I cannot wait to ride more B&M hypercoasters in the future. Number 4 is a very funny spot. This is Colossus Kampf der Giganten in Heide Park in Germany. This is the intimate prefabricated wooden coaster, the first one of its kind, and I barely remember this ride. I just want to say right off the bat, I do not have a lot to say about this coaster. It mainly has this placement because this is basically where I'm guessing it would be, based on what I remember and what I hear from people who ride it more frequently. I've only ever ridden this coaster once. It was somewhat near the middle, and I remember the height of the coaster as well as the drop being very fast and stomach dropping. You get some El Toro-like camelbacks, then the rest of the ride is super speedy, maybe not that powerful, and you finish off with some small little airtime hills where you do get airtime, but I don't necessarily remember much from it. I rode it back in 2015, so before it got completely refurbished and retracked and got completely smooth. I rode it when it was rough, but I don't remember the roughness. Honestly, yeah, it's a bit of an awkward spot this. I don't have a lot to say about it. I really need to visit Heide Park again. And number 3 is Friheden at Djurs in Denmark. If you want a fun, small, intense, intimate airtime machine, look no further than the intimate Megalite, especially Friheden, which I actually think has a slightly faster lift hill than the others. Friheden provides everything. Of course, what this ride is known for is airtime, and it has 10 great airtime moments. A fantastically flojector-like first drop, a floaty twisted camelback, and then a bunch of ejector moments from there on. If you want small bunny hills or a big camelback, it's got you, and if you want the airtime mixed with laterals, look no further than the iconic Twisted Trio on this ride. The Twisted Trio, which is the mix of these 3 twisted bunny hills back to back, is incredibly intense. It's one of the most intense sequences of elements I've ever experienced because the airtime is super powerful on these little hills. I think it's the most powerful airtime I've felt. Plus they're whippy and lateral filled. You also get some more laterals throughout the rest of the ride, and it's also super forceful. The first turn, for example, I've never been on that without graying out. It's great. It really packs a punch and provides some great sensations throughout every element. So if you think that it's a little too much to travel to Asia to ride a Megalite, just go to Denmark. And number 2, we have a Wodan Timber Coaster. This is my only GCI I've done, and it's a Europa Park in Germany. I was absolutely blown away by this ride. Wodan is a fantastic coaster with some great theming. It looks incredibly epic. It has some laterals here and there, some great snappy pops of airtime. But what this ride is really about for me, and why this coaster is really all the way up here as my number 2 coaster of all time, is because of chaos. That's the one word I want to describe Wodan with: chaos. The sheer feeling of constantly being thrown from side to side and a little up and down throughout this chaotic and super snappy layout, while also experiencing a perfect wooden roller coaster rattle in those cushy couch-like seats on a GCI, is unlike anything else. I've never ridden a coaster that takes my breath away this much. It's hard to pinpoint elements because the coaster constantly throws something new at you while also giving you that shaky chaoticness. And it's just epic. It's so fast, it feels like it never slows down at all. It's GCI's tallest coaster as far as I understand, and man, I want to ride more. Finally, at my number 1 spot is the Gröna, a Gerstlauer infinity coaster at Hansa Park in Germany. This coaster is of course just everything. It gives some powerful forces, as well as some really great snappy airtime and some violent laterals. Really whippy elements, Stengel dives, the non-inverting sea serpent roll, which actually provides all 3 main forces, a great hang time inversion, and of course my favorite theme on any coaster. I don't want to spoil too much about the secrets of this ride, but inside the tower and down below the ground, the theming is just beyond this world. It's the most epic theming I've experienced in the queue line and when you board the ride. And it also has some great surprises waiting for you inside that darkness before you get into that massive non-inverting sea serpent roll. I think Gröna is one of the best roller coaster experiences on earth because the entire theming experience is just so epic, and then after that you get this completely grey-out worthy layout that has such speed, as well as the airtime and laterals. Definitely the most intense roller coaster I've ever ridden. So please, if you have the possibility to go to Hansa Park, do it. Ride Gröna. It is so incredible. That's gonna do it for my top 25. This was a long video, and if you want to know more about my rankings, or maybe if you want to give me your ranking, make sure to go do that in the comments below. I would love to see your opinions. Besides that, I would just say thanks for watching, my brutas. Take care. Bye!